is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Follow us on all of our social medias at the Around the 412. They're going down on the ticker right now. If you're watching over on YouTube, we're on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're over on Threads, technically, if that still exists. But also go subscribe to the YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube already, leave a like on the video. Leave some comments. Let us know what you think of the episodes. Also, ask some questions in the comments. We'd love to answer your guys' questions on these shows, whether that is Steelers related, Pirates related, Penguins related, or just whatever. I'm sure we'll answer it, even if it's not Pittsburgh sports related. So go check that out. We're back. Steelers training camp is back. But before we get into that, you know what else is back? Year 7 of Rocking Around the 412. It is our Christmas fundraiser. If you haven't heard about it, Smitty and I started this several years ago. Herb also was included back then. Shout out to Herb. If you know, you know. But it's our Christmas fundraiser to help provide children for kids in the local 724-412 area codes around the Pittsburgh metropolitan area. And over the last 6 years, with the help of everybody that's donated, we've been able to raise over $32,000 to provide children. Last year alone, we raised over $6,600. And we figured this out just last Pirates episode, but the total number of kids that we've been able to help when it comes to providing Christmas for individual families, or whether we were doing it through the Salvation Army, and we did provide with an Aliquippa children's shelter there as well, with 96 kids plus the shelter. So we might be over 100 kids with the help of everybody. That's awesome. We want to continue that this year with year 7. The link for the GoFundMe is going to be at the top of the description on the YouTube and over on the listening platforms. So wherever you find this podcast, you're going to see the link for Rocking Around the 412. If you're interested, go check out the link. You're able to donate there. We've raised over $600 this year already, which is awesome. And if you can't donate, that's okay. Please share the mission. That's enough. That's what we ask for, just to get as many eyeballs on it as we can to provide Christmas for as many kids as possible. The more money we raise, the more kids we can help this time of year. We're running this all the way to Christmas. We started at the beginning of July, so go check it out. Rocket Around the 412, year 7. But like I said before that, we are back. Pittsburgh Steelers football is back. The players have officially reported to training camp. They had a first day of practice on Thursday. It's almost football season. Are we ready to call it football season yet? Or we have to pump the brakes on that?
It's football season. When you're seeing the clips on X and getting excited about it, everything's good. This is the time for excitement for every fan base. Like right now, 32 different fan bases think their team is going to be good in 2024. This is the time for positivity. No negativity allowed during training camp. The only hope that I have at this point, everybody stay healthy. Let's get through this thing completely healthy and get to the regular season for kickoff. But no, very exciting time of year. Again, just an optimism in the air. I believe it is football season once we get to this point. So I'm ready to call it football season. We got some great questions that we're going to talk about. What we heard come out of day 1, big news. Russell Wilson not doing the team drill. So it's funny because like he comes down the steps, he's autographing, going through the entire process, even goes through like the walkthrough as QB1. And then they get the team drills and he's not part of it. Justin Fields operating as QB1. Something going on with his calf. Actually got an MRI on it, I believe today. So there's something going on there, but they made it seem like it wasn't too serious. And also like after practice ended today, he was still out on the field, like moving around pretty good, throwing to receivers. So I don't think it's anything too serious, but certainly something to monitor there. As I think that we would both predict, especially early, defense ahead of the offense, like way ahead of the offense. Some miscues on offense, couple turnovers, just not on the same page, you know. And for the defense, they have obviously 3 new starters, but they're pretty high-level starters, Patrick Queen, DeShon Elliott, and Damontae Jackson on the outside. And then everybody else has been the same, and obviously they have a really good group on that side of the ball. We heard Najee Harris talk yesterday about, you know, his disappointment was the word that he used to describe not getting his 5th-year option picked up. I don't know, like Najee's a pretty straightforward dude, and he doesn't talk a lot, but when he does, it seems like it is genuine. I do think he does want to be in Pittsburgh. I think that ship has sailed, though. I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately, for him. But, I appreciate the fact that he sees it that way. And I do think that we don't have to worry about getting, a good version of Najee Harris this year because of that. He's going to be looking for a payday somewhere else and trying to have his best year to prove the Steelers wrong and prove somebody else that's going to pay him right. Cam Hayward also spoke about his contract. That was today. I say today, but time of recording this, so on Thursday. About his contract situation. He's sticking to that, wanting to play 2 more years after this, man. Like, he has not budged from that thought process at all. Only under contract for this year with the Steelers, and that's it. Then he's set to hit unrestricted free agency. So I'm gonna remain of the fact that something does get done. I am less I am less sure about that than I was at the beginning of the offseason, but I'm more sure about it right now than a couple weeks ago because of Omar Khan's comments following. Omar Khan spoke after the first day of practice and said that he expects Cam to be, a Steeler for a few seasons, like to finish out his career here, basically. So, for the guy that's running the ship, ultimately in control of that decision, to say that, I think they will get something done with Cam. I just don't think it's priority number 1 for them right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when they do get something done, I think the contract is definitely going to be heavily front loaded and something that the Steelers can easily get out of in year 2 or easily maneuver the cap in year 2 if something goes wrong with Cam. Because, last year Cam Hayward was not himself, playing injured, and that, but he's getting older. It's something that you can't really run away from. It's going to happen to every single athlete out there. At some point, you're going to slow down and you're not going to be the player you once were. So I do think the contract will get done. I think the interesting part is it going to be before the season or after the season? That's something that we touched on last week, that a potential Cam Hayward contract might not come until next offseason, which is something that is very, I feel like, un-Steelers for a player like that to not get that contract extension before the season. You don't really see that a lot from the Steelers, but then again, we have talked about over the last year and a half, going on 2 years now, that with Omar Khan comes a new regime, and the way that things ran under Kevin Colbert and how the Steelers operated could be completely different now. And so we may not see a contract with Cam Hayward until next offseason. I do think it gets done, though. To touch on a couple of other things you brought up, Russell Wilson getting hurt with his calf. I'm not really worried about that. I'm sure it's just like more so precautionary by the Steelers and everything.
It's good for Justin.
It is good for Justin, right, getting exposure, getting to play with the ones. And it could, maybe it does make it a real quarterback battle during camp now that he's getting some run with the ones. If he looks really good and continues to, that could be a more serious option, because I want to get your opinion on this too, how you feel about this. Because right now, I think it's more so if they play equal, Russell Wilson is your quarterback. And I'm not talking from me personally. I'm talking from the Steelers' perspective of how they would operate. If their play is equal, I think Russell Wilson would be the quarterback. And I think that Justin Fields has to severely outplay Russell Wilson in training camp and in the preseason to be in order to be able to overcome and be the starting quarterback. I think if they're neck and neck, I still think the nod goes to Russell Wilson because of him being a veteran and having been there, done that type of deal. I want to get your opinion on that. Do you think that Russell Wilson is just like basically not the incumbent because he wasn't the starter last year, but he is the named starter right now, and it's going to take a mountain of effort from Justin Fields to be able to overcome that?
See, I don't know how the team is viewing it. For me personally, I'm trying to figure out why that would be the case. Like, why it wouldn't be a true competition this year.
Right.
Because if anything, Justin's the guy that has more to invest into the future. Like, he is the one that could maybe be a long-term option. You've also, you didn't invest anything. You have less invested in Russ than you do Justin right now. In terms of, you gave up a draft pick to get Justin, and he makes more money. Like, I understand that Russ, it's a situation because of Russ being paid by another team, but specifically for the Steelers, they have more invested in Justin. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why. Literally, the only thing that's on Russ's side is obviously the experience and what he's done in the past, but that's not present day or future. No pun intended with future. So I don't know what to make of that situation. Maybe the team is viewing it that way. I just have a hard time wrapping my head around why it wouldn't be a true competition because of Justin's upside and what he could be. Like, I don't know. So maybe
And I
you're
agree
right.
with that.
I just don't know why. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it should be a true competition. I think that if I were the Steelers and I'm looking at this, I think that you go with who's playing best on any given week, any given down. And if that ends up being Justin Fields, I would roll with that guy. But I just feel like, and this isn't just exclusive to the Steelers or football. This is also something that goes across sports. Someone that has the experience or the veteran years behind them, the name notoriety like Russell Wilson has, like that is something that whether it's coaches or GMs or just organizations in general, that's something that they have intangible value in, whether it's right or wrong. I mean, we saw this for an example. We saw this with the Penguins whenever they were continued to ice Brian Dumoulin and people talking about Brian Dumoulin in the hockey world. Brian Dumoulin's play had deteriorated by that point, but no one was willing to talk about him like that because of the player he was, having 2 Stanley Cups and all that. I kind of view this situation not necessarily the same because I don't think Russell Wilson is nearly as deteriorated as Brian Dumoulin was, but I feel like people in the Steelers circle or the NFL circle are going to look at this and give Russell Wilson a nod over Justin Fields in that sense because he is the veteran guy, whether it's fair to Justin Fields or not. And I don't think that would be fair. And I think it should be a clear-cut quarterback competition because you have a clean slate this year. Nobody that's in the quarterback room from last year is here, and it can be whatever you want it to be. And whatever you want it to be should be the best guy available. If that's Justin Fields, roll with it, especially with the future of what he could bring. I think that would be awesome if he won the job and was able to be the starter this year. But I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the tendencies I see from coaches and organizations across all sports where somebody who has won a Super Bowl and has years under his belt is going to get a longer leash than somebody who doesn't.
Yeah, and that's why, like you say, if it's close, I think it's certainly Russ. But like if Russ is playing very poorly and Justin's playing very well, I don't know why that would be the case. Or like even outperforming him just by a little bit. I don't know why you would lean Russ. If it's the same, then I understand going with Russ. But if Justin's playing better in any capacity, I don't know why that's not the guy that you would roll with. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Although I will say this, we got basically a comment, not necessarily a question about this. Just Nikki said, talk about that dot Fields through to Van. Yeah, that's the clip that everybody's talked about today. Shout out to someone that I'm actually was in a Steelers group chat with, Baku, training camp legend. He's the one that gets all these videos going back to last year, popped up on the scene, everybody taking his clips, but like PFF used it. CBS Sports put it out there. Like a bunch of different outlets were using his clip. Awesome throw, hit Van in stride for a would-be touchdown. Worth noting on that play, Damontae Jackson also fell down. So that is why. But the thing is, like, you end up seeing him in the clip, like he was able to get back up and at least regain some ground. Was talking with Alan about it today because obviously we're going to see the highlights that people post on X, like if you're not actually there. But he said it wasn't a good day for Justin Fields. Like, obviously, if you're just looking at the clips that people post, you think, wow, like, look at these flashy plays that he's making. But I mentioned at the beginning, not a good day for the offense. Defense, as we expected, very much ahead of the offense. Justin was certainly part of that. Alan said it just wasn't a very good day for him, but there were a couple flashes, which day one, no pads. That's kind of what you want to see. But I also think like people are really running with this that aren't there because this is what the picture that's being painted for us based off social media is the plays these ridiculous plays that Justin was making. Also, like it would have been, there's this other one that like would have clearly been a sack, like bounces off of DeShon Elliott because they can't actually like hit him or try to tackle him, and then throws to Jalen Warren. But like that play doesn't happen in real life.
Right.
So, I don't know. Although, you got to give Justin some credit. He's certainly a guy, one of the very few quarterbacks that can escape those types of situations. But again, percentage wise, probability of happening on the wrong side of that. So just figured I'd throw that in there as well. We'll see again, what the reps continue to look like, how quickly Russ can get back on the field. If Justin does hit, though, man, not only for this year, but obviously going forward for the future, what a game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. I was sitting here and I was like almost 15 minutes and I was like, how am I going to work this in? How am I going to work this in? So that's what you get. Be sure to check out pick6.la or gamechanger.la. Use code AT412 for $10 off. Actually, Justin Fields to sign on the site right now. And they also put out a post today on X asking for people's ideas for new designs. So that promo that I just played says over 2,000 designs. It's actually over 3,000 now, and they're looking to continue to make more. So if there's like a Pittsburgh Steeler you would like to see a shirt for, go give them a shout over at Game Changers on X. Who do you want to see? But yeah, we'll see how quickly Russ can get back onto the field. Another thing that I expected, we saw come to fruition was the offensive line. You know, we knew that, or at least I knew, and I felt like you were on the same page, that we would see the vets on day one. Like, now how quickly do we see Frazier overtake Herbig and Troy Fautanu get into that starting rotation will be determined. But certainly for day one, I expected it to be this way, with Broderick on the right side, with Dan Moore Jr. on the left side, Herbig at center. We actually got a question about this. I mean, we can have a general conversation about the state of the offensive line, but Captain Hindsight, I love the name, by the way, says, do the right tackle snaps hinder Broderick Jones' development as a left tackle at this point? Why not make Dan Moore the one who is uncomfortable at right tackle this year instead of Jones? This wouldn't require the team to hand the starting job to Fautanu at right tackle, although he wouldn't take long to surpass Moore. Here's the thing. They, at this point, I feel like it's very clear, Dan Moore Jr. is the left tackle backup, most likely in 2024. Of course, if something goes wrong or for whatever reason, Fautanu or Broderick just aren't good enough to win a job, then maybe he is the starter. But they're not invested in him beyond 2024. That's not the case with the other two. They've invested first-round picks in these guys. They want them to be their bookend tackles for a decade plus.
Mm-hmm.
In the situation where Troy Fautanu goes down, specifically him, I have to use him for this example. It's Broderick that would switch to the right side because Dan Moore Jr. cannot play on the right side. Like, they're not going to continue to try to make that happen because it's not going to happen. He's in the last year of his deal. Most likely scenario is he walks after this year. So if there's an injury to Troy Fautanu, it's going to be Broderick that shifts over to the right side and then Dan Moore on left, not the other way around. That wouldn't make any sense in terms of the comfort level. We saw Broderick play right tackle last year. We know he can do it. I think this is just a way of making sure that he's ready to go on both sides, should he have to be. The way that I still see this playing out is him being the team starting left tackle and Troy Fautanu being the team starting right tackle. We're talking about one day of camp right now. And I'm not saying like Captain Hindsight is overreacting to this or anything, but I see a lot of people that are or were when they saw, the starting group that came out for the offensive line. I fully expected this. It means absolutely nothing in terms of the way that they're going to line up when we kick off in Atlanta. So for me, again, it's just all about the investments that they've made in the other two and the fact that Dan Moore Jr., they're not going to try to get him to play right tackle. Like, that ship has sailed. It's not happening.
I agree. It's not happening. And I couldn't help but think to last year with the exact same players we're talking about. And whenever Broderick Jones was not immediately running with the ones in training camp, the absolute chaos that ensued from the fan base, that what are they doing? Is he bad? Is he going to be a bust? Like, people just need to calm down. We are literally one day. We haven't even hitting each other yet. It's something that's going to be a process, especially with new offensive linemen. It's going to be a process to find the proper mold and fitting. And those guys also, quite frankly, have to earn it too. I don't think that they should be outright given practice with the ones just because he's a first overall pick with Troy Fautanu. I don't. I think that if you have someone like Dan Moore there, he should be with the ones right now and make Troy Fautanu earn it with his play to be able to get with the ones. And I think the same goes with Zach Frazier, because you saw Nate Herbig running with the ones as well at center. Zach Frazier, same thing. Even though we expect both of those guys to be the starting players at their positions, that doesn't mean that you have to start them there immediately on day one of camp. I think that what the Steelers are doing is completely fine. I think it's a little bit of overreaction from day one for a lot of Steeler fans. And this happened last year. We literally saw it happen last year. It's going to continue to happen every single year where you draft somebody and you're not going to be running with the ones immediately. But I agree with you, too, that I do think it's smarter while they're practicing to have Dan Moore Jr., if he's going to be running with the ones, just keep him on the left. Because if he gets into a game, that's where he's going to play. It's not going to be the other way around. If you get into a scenario where Troy Fautanu gets hurt, that ones that you're looking at with the tackles, with Broderick on the right and Dan Moore Jr. on the left, as you saw in that first practice, that's what you're going to look at in a game. So why would you flip that just to get Broderick Jones more reps? Because I feel way more comfortable. Broderick Jones feels way more comfortable about being able to go to the left without having that practice on the left right now than Dan Moore Jr. ever would on the right. So I don't even think it's worth the conversation to like, why would you even have that or bring that up? But yeah, that's just my take on those two offensive linemen not being in the ones right now and being with the twos with Zach Frazier and Troy Fautanu specifically. I think that's something that you shouldn't just be given. It's something that you have to earn. And I respect that the coaches are able to do that. And I hope that Steeler fans realize this is not just something that they're going to do just because they want to play the guys that are running with the ones right now. It's something that is going to improve these athletes from running with the twos and earning that spot to go run with the ones. That's something that's going to improve them as players, not just giving them the job immediately.
Yeah, they got to take the opportunity that's in front of them and seize it. And speaking of that, what opportunity in front of the receivers right now on this roster? I mean, everything besides George Pickens.
I would say George Pickens and a bunch of wide receivers that are probably 4 through 6.
Yeah, I mean, Van Jefferson, he was the obviously had the reception on that Justin Fields play that I was talking about that blew up on social media. But even beside that, like talking to my boy Nick Faribaugh, who covered the team, he said like Van was probably one of his 3 winners for the day, just in general, not just because of that play. He looked really good, which is great to see. A lot of buzz surrounding Calvin Austin because of the spring that he had. Roman Wilson, obviously they invested a 3rd-round pick in. Quiet day on all accounts on his part, but that's okay. You know, we're talking about 1 day training camp so far and the pads aren't even on. I feel like when the pads come on, that's when he will elevate himself. He just seems like that type of player. So, but yeah, so much opportunity there. Wanted to mention, we got a question here from somebody that was talking about, so even if it's not, you know, Brandon Ayuk, Courtland Sutton, is there somebody that is, you know, available via trade right now that comes to mind? And I don't know that's a specific player, but I'm looking at teams. Right? Like the Texans have probably 8 NFL quality wide receivers right now. The Titans have an abundance of receivers right now. And it seems like Treylon Burks, who knows what's going on with him? They had that dude covering punts. So like, I don't know what his role is going to be for the Titans, if he's looking for a fresh start or what. I think there's somebody that we're not thinking about right now that his roster's cut down. I don't know if it's a trade necessarily, but I think that there's still a addition to be made somewhere. And Omar Khan's, you know, comments to the media afterwards really don't make me feel any differently. You know, I mean, that could be a smoke screen. The way that he talked about the receivers, just saying there's nothing going on right now. Okay. You know, like a month before he was traded, you had all the faith in the world in Kenny Pickett. So, you know, I mean, things are said and things are done, and there's different things to be done there. So I will take the actions over the words every single time. And I think there is very much still a search for a receiver going on right now.
I think so too. I mean, we just talked about it. George Pickens, and then a bunch of guys that you probably would think on a better roster with a better wide receiver room are wide receiver 4 through 6, anywhere in those rankings. Like, we don't really have true wide receiver 2, 3 talent right now on the roster. At least nobody's shown that. And you want to grab somebody like that, like free agent wise, the guy that you predicted could be a Steeler, Michael Thomas, he's still out there. Could the Steelers potentially sign him? If you're looking at the potentially trading for somebody or somebody that might like, I think if you look at the Texans, a veteran receiver I think would do good with the Steelers. Robert Woods is someone that I would be interested in from the Texans. He still plays at a good enough level that it would be good for the Steelers to add him to the room, and someone that could be that like wide receiver 2-3 on your team right now. I think that they still have to do something. If they stay with the room that they're at right now, then it's going to be very dicey unless a couple people step up. And don't get me wrong, like you just mentioned, like Van Jefferson was said to have a good day. Calvin Austin had a good OTAs and hopefully continuing to do that. But we got to see it in games. We got to see it in season. And I don't think that it's worth the gamble of hoping that they do that in season on their own. And I think that you have to kind of take advantage of what you're in and the players that are available to you and still add to this wide receiver room. Even though the wide receiver room is not going to be as, what's the right word, vital in this type of offense that the Steelers are expected to be running as it would be in the past, I still think that you have to improve it, because after George Pickens, you have nothing but question marks who on a Sunday, who's going to be the second guy targeted outside of Pat Freiermuth. We know he's going to be the second most targets, at least, maybe even the first most targets. I think there's potential there. But yeah, after those two, who else is getting the targets? I think that you have to capitalize on the situation you're in. Like, I think free agent Michael Thomas, why is he still a free agent? Why haven't the Steelers kicked the tires on that again? Like, why not bring him in? I don't see the reason.
Yeah, at least
why.
for a workout, you don't have to sign him. I'm curious where the ankle is at to see, but I don't know. I mean, you mentioned what they need from the receivers within this offense. You still need good players. I just think it's like a different skill set than you're asking for. Yeah. It's interesting because Nick and I had a conversation about this on an episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive going back to last week. And like the depth of the receiving room is there. Like they have, but you just don't have that number two. Like if this is a better room after the number two than it was last year, if you would have still just plucked Deontay Johnson into this receiver room right now, just plop him in there. It's a better room than last year. Like you've replaced Allen Robinson, you've replaced Gunnar Olszewski, you've replaced Miles Boykin, but without that number two, you're asking guys to be in roles that they either can't or we haven't seen them in before. Like right now, you're asking a ton out of Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, maybe a rookie Roman Wilson as well. And you're asking more of George Pickens without somebody on the other side who's able to take that pressure off of him. So it's just, yeah, I think that like 4 through 6 or 3 through 6, they're probably better than last year. You're just missing that too. And I don't know that guy's out there to be had either. Like, I don't know that if it was Courtland Sutton, sure, Brandon Ayuk would be the one. But like, if it was one of these other guys, sure. But with who we're talking about right now, if you're talking about adding Treylon Burks or Robert Woods, Noah Brown, whoever from the Texans or somebody like that, I mean, yeah, maybe he is like a 3 or 4, but again, you're still missing that too. Next to George Pickens, and you're asking a lot of Pat Freiermuth for that reason. He seemed to be the star today that everybody was talking about. Like, I follow a lot of people that cover the team, obviously on Twitter, and most people do like, who stood out in a positive way today like that, and they'll list like 3 guys or so. He was on everybody's list, Pat Freiermuth, and that fully expected within this offense. But the way that they're utilizing him, moving him around and stuff, I think is what's so interesting to me. There was a great play, a clip of a play where it was actually Kyle Allen throwing him the ball, hit him on a sail concept towards the boundary. And somebody asked him afterwards, how many times have you run that in the NFL? And he's like, yeah, not very much. Haven't done that a ton since college. So he's going to be doing different things within this offense that I'm very excited to see. And I want to say this is just a prediction because people could take it the wrong way. They might think that there's some information being added here specifically with this. There is not. I think by the time we're talking next week, Pat Freiermuth will have also signed an extension.
I like it. I mean, he's the one that we talked about last week when we were talking extensions that seems the most likely to happen before the season. So I would love that. Love that to lock up that tight end. Also, Courtland Sutton today, as of recording this on Thursday, signed a restructured deal worth up to $15.2 million with the Broncos with incentives of $1.5 million in the contract.
Yeah, he's sticking around.
As much as I would love Courtland Sutton, and that was my guy as far as trading goes. That was my guy that I wish they would have gotten. It's not.
What are the why though? Like, what is the reason for the Broncos to keep him around? I mentioned that, there's 32 teams right now that have optimism for their 2024 season because it's training camp. The Broncos shouldn't. They should be one of the very few teams.
Well, who's throwing the ball?
I don't know who's starting with this. I mean, you would expect Bo Nix to eventually be that, but I don't know if he is right now.
With Zach Wilson first?
It could be. Is Jarrett Stidham still in that roster? Like, what a wild QB room.
That's your QB room.
Yeah.
Entering the season.
I'm actually curious because they would have already. I want to see what their.
I thought I felt bad with Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph. I don't know which one's worse.
Zach Wilson was with second team.
Okay.
Yeah, Bo Nix was with the starters.
Wow. I might just be rolling with it then.
Yeah. Sean Payton.
I mean, good for him.
Yeah. That's surprising to me, but I don't know. So if that's the case, like, is one of those guys on the chopping block? Could they potentially be cut? Smitty from around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. I don't know. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to see play out. I'm surprised that Sean Payton's rolling with a rookie this early here. The last question's pretty funny that we got from John. Who has the better mustache between Artie Smith and Paul Skeens in Pittsburgh now? I appreciate Artie Smith bringing the mustache back, by the way. I think it needed to happen. And that was one of the first things. I think it was Brian Batko that put out the picture, and I just replied with it with a picture of a Lombardi trophy. Like, that's how much that impacts the season for me. The fact that Artie Smith has a mustache.
Maybe my bias is playing into it a little bit, but just the fact that how good Paul Skeens is make me like his mustache more. Like, maybe I have to see a season under Artie Smith first to really know which mustache I like more. But like, because say the Steelers offense turns around, they win the division. Maybe I'm team Artie Smith mustache. But as of right now, definitely going to be rookie of the year, potential Cy Young candidate, Paul Skeens. I mean, I feel like I got to roll with my boy.
They're 1A, 1B. I think the thing for me is almost like with a little bit of empathy here, and maybe I can relate to it a little bit, is the salt and pepper look that Artie's got going on in his mustache. Man, I was trimming down the other day, and I was like, my beard is 3 different colors. Like, I got some brown in there. It turns a little red in the summer because of the sun hitting it.
Yeah.
Some red comes out in it as well. And then there's some grays in there. And so maybe for me, because of feeling like Art and I are kind of, we have that bond now with the gray hair and the facial hair, I'm rolling with Artie over Paul, as much as I love Paul Skeens' mustache.
I'll throw another one in there.
Yeah.
Paul Skeens, Artie Burns, or Brian Rust.
I'm assuming Artie Smith.
Or Artie Smith. Artie Burns. Oh my goodness. That's probably the first time Artie Burns has been brought up on this show in 5 years.
Since he was cut.
What a throwback.
You know what's funny is I thought you were just throwing Nick Gonzalez. Nick Gonzalez has a nice
one
as
too.
well.
No, I was just trying to think of how to incorporate the other sport, Penguins.
Yeah, the Rustache is great, but it's not moving it for me. Like, these were the two for sure to go head to head. Throw out there. I think that these are 1 and 2 now in Pittsburgh, or 1A and 1B. But I'll give Artie the nod just because of the gray, the salt and pepper look that he's got going on in there. Wanted to mention too, because we weren't sure how it was going to shake out. Cam Sutton obviously suspended, but he could take part in training camp practices. And Tomlin said he expected him to get his normal workload, but that wasn't the case. He was the number 3 slot cornerback. So that certainly didn't hold true when it was actually time. Again, going back to the actions over the words thing that I mentioned with Omar Khan talking about the receiver position. DeShon Elliott, first guy to get a crack at the slot corner spot. So when they would go into nickel, Damontae Kazee would be the extra defensive back to come onto the field. DeShon Elliott would shift into the slot. Damontae Kazee would be the other safety next to Minkah Fitzpatrick. It was, Allen actually called that one, that it was going to be the case. So I think it's interesting. And then Beanie Bishop was the guy behind him. So the trust that they have in him as a UDFA rookie to go out there and do that job already, getting time with the ones, certainly a statement. But it goes back to, this spring. They spoke very highly of him. Everybody that was watching the practices spoke highly of him. So I'm very excited for his future as well. But what do we make of DeShon Elliott getting the first crack there with those slot snaps?
Well, I mean, we touched on it a little bit last week. We thought that looking at what's available for the Steelers secondary, if they were to go into nickel, we mentioned whether it would be Kazee, Minkah, DeShon Elliott. We thought there's a possibility it could be one of those safeties sliding down and go into that nickel position. So it might not have been the guy that we expected. I mean, you said Allen predicted it, but I don't think either of us predicted DeShon Elliott doing that. But we were
I said he'd be part of the mix,
idea.
But
yeah, we were entertaining the idea a week ago. So I think that's something that is good for the secondary, like putting your best players out there in those positions. But if Beanie Bishop is able to play well enough to play himself into that starting nickel position, and you can keep DeShon Elliott in that spot at safety when you go into nickel, all power to him. I mean, this guy, he's got nothing to lose. Undrafted free agent this year as a rookie. So he's just playing with house money right now. I feel like being able to be given this opportunity.
Doesn't it feel like he's already a lock for the 53-man roster, which is crazy to say for a UDFA rookie? Yeah, I mean,
based off granted, it is 1 day of training camp. If we emphasize that with the linemen, we got to emphasize that with this. But the training camp, what he did in mini camp, OTAs, I feel like his name has been circulated enough where it would feel weird if he wasn't on the 53-man roster to open the season.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not like he's not quite a lock for me in the way that TJ Watt, you think he's going to make the roster, but for guys that are, I don't know, from like that aren't guaranteed a starter spot right now, I think Beanie Bishop's pretty safe on the roster.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I'm excited to watch that continue.
I have a question for you.
Yeah,
I want to know. We talked about it earlier, how the defense won the day, kind of status quo. What everybody would think that, but over the entire training camp, so we've talked about this offseason how this defense has the potential to be top 5 in the league, and going against that every single day, it's going to be a struggle for the offense, no matter what. When you're ones on ones. So are you going to be worried if you don't see strides from the offense in training camp because of the competition they're going against? Does that change your opinion if they don't take great strides as an offense? Because I feel like when you're going against that defense every single day, obviously you would like to see some improvement from the offense. You very well may, but I don't think that you might not see as much as you would like to in training camp because of how good that defense actually is on the other side of the ball. And maybe it's not until preseason going against a lesser defense, or even going into the actual season, going against a defense that's not as good as your own one, that you might see more strides from the offense. They might be able to get the playbook down and get some cohesiveness together in training camp. I just don't know that you're going to see great strides from an offense going against a potential top 5 defense every single day.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good point. What I'll say is maybe the results aren't there, right? But you at least need to have the process there. Like the defense can obviously hinder what those results of those are. Maybe they're still winning 7 shots every single day and stuff like that. But don't not turn the football over. Just being on the same page, starting to gel. Maybe no false starts or pre-snap stuff going on the offensive side of the ball. Those are the types of things that I think I'll be looking for more so than just like the results of them. Like, are they winning 7 shots, 4-3, 5-2, day in and day out, or anything like that? I don't expect that. And I wouldn't be worried if they're on the wrong side of those pretty much every single day. Again, I just need to see progress and them getting down the process of what they want this offense to be more so than the results showing up right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I think that getting the playbook down, getting some cohesiveness as an offensive line and as an offense in general, quarterbacks to wide receivers, because there's so much new, that also plays against the offense in what they're going to be able to do against the defense. But if the defense wins every single practice, I don't know that I'm going to necessarily feel as bad as for the offense as I would have, because of not only just what's going against the offense as far as the changes to it in the offseason, but because of how good we expect this defense to be. And so it might not be until week 1 where we actually see the offense take a bigger stride as a unit, but I don't think that I'm going to hold it against the offense this training camp if we hear that the defense just looks better every day, because that should just be expected at this point.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, did you see the way I don't know why this just popped in my mind, but like player arrival day a couple days ago, time of recording this. How about Landon Roberts, the way that he showed up?
Oh, I love the look.
What's funny is I was like, okay, so like I had a text from him at 4:32 in the morning that I woke up to the day that they reported. And then I saw that he showed up like that. And I was like, man, this guy was just ready to go. But shout out to E-Rob. I don't know if you saw this, but he sent me a text too saying how much he loved the merch. And that meant a lot to me. And I was excited about that. So I'm going to definitely get him
that's awesome.
some stuff out. So yeah, big shout out to E-Rob. And I'm excited.
Cowboy hat, the overalls, the clean shaven face. That was a look that
the mustache. Yeah, just the mustache.
Yeah,
I've never seen him with this.
Has he ever not had a beard in the NFL? Like every picture I see him with, he's had a beard.
Yeah, I think
looks
so.
like a completely. At first, I was like, "Who is this guy?" And then
did you see what he said about it? Like why?
No, I didn't see that.
So he's from Texas, and like he said, where I'm from, this is what it means going. Like this is what you throw on when it's time to go to work. So he's like channeling his roots, as if he's on like as if he's a farmhand here, showing up for work. And I told him it's not the same get up, it's not the same fit, but it's the idea behind it to me is reminiscent of, if you remember when Eli Rogers showed up with a hard hat and lunch pail.
Yeah,
to training camp because it was time to go to work. So yeah, it just gave me the same type of vibes. So big shout out to E. Definitely stole the day in terms of the fit. And
that's awesome.
I'm excited for him because he said E-Rob, he told us when he was on Afternoon Drive, E-Rob, you don't see E-Rob until the pads come on. You see a Landon, and then you see E-Rob once the pads come on. So it's a different person. And I'm excited for E-Rob to make his first appearance whenever the pads do come on.
I believe it. Like I told you a couple weeks ago, that was one of my favorite interviews that I've ever seen. Like whether it's no matter who's interviewing, I loved that Landon Roberts interview that you guys did on Steelers Afternoon Drive. Made him one of my favorite players on the Steelers.
Yeah. I hope. I mean, now might be kind of tough, but I feel like we could definitely get him on this channel. Might have to wait until the off season or something, but we'll see. If things are going really well in season, maybe we can make it work. But no promises. But if he's gonna be rocking the merch, might as well come on the podcast for the merch that he's rocking. Tyler, do you have anything else?
Nothing, except maybe during his bye week we can interrupt a vacation and just try to get him on.
Yeah, he definitely a family man. Got a couple kids, and one of them is very young, infant. So that's where a lot of his time is focused. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he does during his bye week. I don't know what he did last year during the bye week. He was supposed to come on Afternoon Drive actually last year in season, but we made the call, not him. I want to put this out there. We made the call for it to not happen when it was supposed to happen because they went on a 2-game losing streak they ended up being longer. It was a 3-game, by the time it was 2 to Arizona and New England back to back. He was supposed to come on the day after that Patriots game, and Alan made the call. We were like, we don't want you having to deal with the comments from the fan base right now that you would get for coming on here after a loss like that.
Yeah.
So let's just reschedule. So he ended up coming on this offseason. Yeah. But anyways, be sure to check out the links in the description, especially that one right at the top. Rocking Around the 412 Year 7 has launched this month. Already, what'd you say? $620 some raised so far.
Yeah, it's like $625, I think.
raised so far. So shout out to everybody that's already donated, is going to donate. Every single penny goes directly to impacting children in our community, 724 and 412 area codes, providing Christmas they otherwise would not have, whether it's an individual family that we find through the school districts or partnering up with East Rochester Salvation Army, adopting angel tree tags that they do over there, if you're familiar with that stuff. But either way, every single penny goes directly to helping these kids have a Christmas that they deserve, like Tyler and I had growing up, and we're very fortunate to do so. And a lot of you guys watching or listening to this, I'm sure, can relate to that as well. Also, everything custom designs is in the description. I'm rocking one of the shirts right now, the Around the 412 shirts. Direct link for that is down below, but she does a lot of other stuff. I'll let me from the past tell you about them. Need a custom t-shirt, hoodie, tumbler? Stop what you're doing. Don't go anywhere else. Check out the link in the description. Everything Custom Designs. Our friend Haley Wagner, small business. She can do all that for you. She even does Around the 412 merch, t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeve tees, bunch of different stuff. I even got a tumbler from her as well. So go check out the link in the description. Goes directly to her Facebook page. All of her stuff can be found there. Again, Everything Custom Designs. Haley Wagner. She does great work. Can't recommend her enough. Go check it out. Be like Pat Freiermuth. Be like a Landon Roberts. Go get yourself some Around the 412 merch. I know it's only July, but fall will be here before you know it. I'm really excited to start rocking the hoodies because obviously right now I've really just been wearing the t-shirts, but the hoodies and long sleeves, I'm really excited to start rocking right now. Also, we got shorts by DC4L Customs. The link to that is in the description too. And then Game Changer and Pick 6 in the description as well. Save $10 when you use the code AC412 at checkout. I think that's it. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you were on here on YouTube. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything that we talked about today, questions for a future episode, all that good stuff. If you're listening somewhere else, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find us. Just search Around the 412 and do that good stuff over there. Follow us everywhere at Around the 412, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, not Threads. That doesn't even matter at this point. I'm probably going to delete that from the banner before next episode.
Said that TikTok, for 6 months.
No, I'm going to do it literally as soon as we're done recording right here, so I don't even have to think about it. So be sure to follow us everywhere. Just did an Instagram exclusive giveaway. More of that type of stuff coming. So be sure that you're following us on everywhere so you don't miss out on any of that cool stuff. For Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.